So welcome, our beloved colleague Cathy. We so appreciate your leadership. And as always at Setsi, we begin all things by acknowledging our creator, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So welcome, Cathy. Could you please share with us your remarkable work and a little bit about your background with our listeners and viewers?
Sure, it's a delight to be here, Victor. Thank you so much for that acknowledgement. I'm Cathy Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of the Ontario Nonprofit Network, or known affectionately as ONN. And I've been the first Executive Director. I've been here 12 years now, which it's gone so fast. I've worked in the nonprofit sector for my whole career, so almost 30 years now, in arts, social services, healthcare, environmental groups. And ONN is really just such a great organization to work for, because we get to advocate and work alongside all of those types of groups in our work.
Absolutely. I've been a fan of ONN for years, probably 12. I've been able to collaborate with all your staff and colleagues, even some board members. So once again, we applaud you for all that you do for so many. So my next question is, what's inspiring you right now about your work? What has you curious?
Oh, good question. One of the things that has inspired me the most this fall, we've been doing regional meetings where we're going to communities and sitting with nonprofits and charities and really deeply listening. What's going on in your world? What are you excited about? What's keeping you up at night? And so we have been in 6 communities in the last few months. We were in Thunder Bay and Belleville, Niagara, Ottawa, Waterloo, and Timmins. And it's been so amazing to hear the important work going on in community, to see folks networking and connecting after the pandemic, and many of them haven't seen each other for a while. And there's also a lot of new people in our sector, a lot of new, emerging leaders, and so connecting them with each other, getting input for our work at the provincial level, but also giving them an opportunity to talk amongst themselves and strategize for what they can do regionally. So it really gives me inspiration to see the amazing work from sports organizations to food bank to social economy work that's happening at community in tough times. Frankly, it's tough times for the charitable sector and the nonprofit sector. But I love hearing the stories, and I love really listening to what folks are facing.
I couldn't agree more. A lot of my elders have always told me, think globally, but act locally. And when I think about the ecosystem mobilization, amplification work the Ontario Nonprofit Network is doing, it's truly remarkable. So once again, we give thanks. So my next question is, what challenges and barriers do you face in your work? And what are some of the approaches you and your colleagues are using to tackle some of these?
There's no shortage of challenges right now. And I think partially that's because of the systems that we're in, our funding systems, our government systems, our capitalist systems, our white supremacy systems. So it does feel like there's a lot of challenges right now. The sector is being challenged with resources, both human resources, recruiting and retaining staff, as well as financial resources. So we're seeing that really play out in how they're able to support their communities. It's a challenge working with the governments of the day that we have in Ontario and nationally, and the slowness of bureaucracy and the lack of attention to community work. So we're finding that a real challenge. But on the flip side of that, those challenges also gives us opportunities to dream big, to think about system change, to be really clear about what our vision and values and purpose are. And our whole goal is to do collective advocacy in the spirit of reciprocity. So how can we advance issues that we all have in common that maybe individual organizations can't tackle on their own? And so, they rise to the top in times like this. So we've got lots that we can work on, from decent work to creating community land trusts to, you name it. And so being able to move the bar on some of those opportunities is the sort of the flip side of the challenges that we face in the moment.
And just a solidarity, it's always been a pleasure working with the ONN team, because you've always been able to center justice, access, inclusion, diversity, and equity in all your work. And I think I agree completely. It is a very difficult time to work, but once again, we must rise to the occasion, because the nonprofit sector is a force we reckon with, and it's doing work that is deep and important work. So once again, we applaud you for all that you're doing for so many. So my next question is, how do you feel about the future of the nonprofit network in Canada?
Yeah, am actually quite optimistic about it right now. And partially, one of the reasons I'm optimistic is 2 weeks ago, ONN brought together emerging networks across the country. So we had folks from Nunavut and PI and BC and Saskatchewan and New Brunswick, who some of which were starting a nonprofit network like ONN, others who had a community sector council there for a while, like in Newfoundland and Labrador. And we all came together as pan-Canadian to talk about how do we do collective advocacy? How do we do this work meaningfully? How do we support each other? So it really, and this is the first time we've met in 5 years, and there wasn't that many folks 5 years ago. And so I'm so optimistic that there's such an interest in supporting that infrastructure of the sector. We do need intermediaries. We do need that infrastructure where we can share information and do policy work together. We're not duplicating. There's no competition. There's more than enough work for all of us. And so I feel really optimistic about the future of the collective work we can do together, and partially because we have a new not a new crop of people, but really people taking on leadership, and I think coming out of the pandemic, it was a bit of an eye-opener for many that networks worked, right? Networks and sharing information and putting aside the collaboration or the cooperation that people call it, to actually get stuff done for our communities. And so I think there is a renewed sense that we need to work in that kind of network model going forward. So I'm optimistic about that.
I couldn't agree more. The funding Olympics, the oppression Olympics, the Hunger Games that manifest and is actualized in some sectors is atrocious. And I think that coming out of the pandemic, folks realized that we have, it's fast alone or far together. And we want to get far, so we have to work together. So I couldn't agree more. My next question is, what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like to you and your colleagues?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've just been doing some work on, what's the next strategic framework for ONN, and what do we want to do going forward in terms of the big picture vision. And really, we want to see a thriving nonprofit sector that we have an enabling public policy and system change that allows nonprofits to thrive in their communities. So that's the ultimate vision. And I think, some of the impacts we're talking about, we need a better narrative about the sector, the value of working in the sector, the value of the work that we do, and to help the public understand that narrative. We really want to see intentional networks and the building of networks within the sector and across Canada. And so we want to spend some time and resources on that. We definitely want to see a government policy environment that supports the sector, and we call it nonprofit-driven policy. So we really want to, one of our vision is nonprofit-driven policy, so that every government thinks about what impact their decision would be on the nonprofit sector, just like they might think of it on the small business sector or the agricultural sector. So those are some of the top things that we're driving for right now.
No, that's incredible. So this is my second last question. In terms of future-proofing the sector, we came out of the pandemic and there are so many challenges. We saw some remarkable opportunities: the COVID Rapid Relief Fund, the Emergency Recovery Fund, the Community Service Recovery Fund, and governments are really trying to find ways and means to support the sector. But how do you feel about how we should be strategizing right now to future-proof the sector around other challenges that may come along the road?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's a good question. You left that one for last. It's tricky. I think one of the things we saw I am seeing the pendulum swing a little back, which is really upsetting and disturbing and frustrating. As funders are like, well, we gave you lots of money and now you're okay, right? And not thinking we just did a survey of nonprofits and charities in Ontario. The demand for service is through the roof in every type of organization, even the arts, sports, social services. They can't keep up with this demand. So, I think when we think about future proofing, we actually have to change our funding systems, and we actually have to figure out how to really create decent work and pay our people better and make sure that we're not burning them out. And so ultimately, one of the things we've been talking about is, our sector operates really with two key resources: our people and the finances. So how can we do those things both differently? So the social finance and the, not relying on government funding for everything, thinking about different alternatives for financing and how to really support our people. And if we do those two well, then we'll future-proof the sector. But we really have to figure out some different models, because what we're seeing is we are seeing governments and philanthropy sliding a bit backwards. And that worries me, and that doesn't bode well for the future proofing. So I think we need to just continue to be stronger advocates, and really look for those alternative models and solutions and be open to new ideas.
I couldn't agree more. I think at Setsi, data is a love language for us, and ONN has led so many remarkable data initiatives, has had remarkable data reports that have come out. And when we look at some of the models around social finance or community finance, the work that Catalyst is doing, or even just social acquisitions, the fact that charities have the ability to do direct equity investments, like there's so many interesting models that can be leveraged to create sustainability. And I think we really need to amplify them and find ways and means to build on them. So my last question, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action, listeners and our viewers?
Oh my goodness. Closing thoughts, I think there's something very powerful about the nonprofit and charitable sector and our grassroots colleagues as well, that, we can, every nonprofit and charity started because a group of citizens got together and decided that there was something they wanted to work on or resolve or an opportunity. And so, how we support them, how we create them to do the work that they need to do to support their communities, however they define their community, whether it's geographic or types of folks in their community. And so that inspires me. I think we all need to figure out how we support the ecosystem, because we are an ecosystem. We don't have to compete for resources or for talent. We can actually take a broader lens to, we're all working in the same system. I'm always excited when staff move on to a different kind of leadership role, because I feel like, oh, great, now they're contributing to the system in a different way. So I think if we think more about, being part of an ecosystem instead of our own silos, and really focus on what we need to be successful in that, I think there's a huge potential for our sector to really tackle. We're already tackling the big issues of our time, but to change some of the systems that are in place right now.
Well, Cathy, I can't thank you enough for your consistent leadership, solidarity, your camaraderie, your tenacity, and vigilance for our sector and the ecosystem. And I just appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate you so much, Victor. Thank you for this opportunity. It's always a delight working with you and your colleagues at Setsi.
Indeed. And we'll close the way we began this interview by acknowledging our creator, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you, Cathy.
Thank you, Victor.